Welcome to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast with your host, Wealth Coach Wade Reed.
Hey, what is up, Money Masters? It's Wade Reed here for another episode of the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. And as promised, I'm bringing on some really interesting and exciting interviews with great people, business people who have had interesting success stories and challenges. And the first one you're going to get to hear from today is Eric Levine. Eric, hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome and appreciate you joining me today. Guys, just to give you a little bit of background, I met Eric at an event I was at a few weeks ago in Pensacola, California, and we were doing some training on wealth creation and what it takes to really become known in the world. And Eric and I had a chance to sit next to each other at a dinner and got to know some of his interesting background. And I thought, man, this would be just a fantastic person to be on because he's such a good-hearted person, but also has had tremendous business success. And so, Eric, if I understand it correctly, you've been in the entrepreneurial space and fitness industry for over 40 years. Is that right?
Yes, my father was an athlete and bodybuilder, actually, and I was brought up in Montreal. And the Weider brothers, who ended up really Muscle magazines and starting everything, were actually living in my area, part of the synagogue that we went to. So we became friends, and my father was into that. So I was into proper eating, vitamins before vitamins were even legal, probably. And that was part of the world that I came from.
Wow. So fitness was in the beginning. And I'm curious about some of the backstory. Like, not everyone just suddenly becomes an entrepreneur. What are some of the little stories from when you were younger that kind of seeded the potentiality of you becoming a business leader?
Well, I remember looking at one of my comic books. On the back of it, they had all these prizes that you could get. And I was just starting to play baseball. I was probably 4, maybe 5. And they had that one Rawlings professional looking glove that I wanted that was on the back of this comic book. And the only way to get it was to sell seeds, packets of seeds. I asked my mother, how do I get that? And she's, we'll send away, we'll get the seeds and you go and sell them. Seeds came. And I went on my tricycle with my horn and my ringer and all my flags and my baseball cards and the stuff, making as much noise as possible. And I'd pull up to my neighbors, knock, knock, knock. And they'd look, and they'd have to look down. And will you buy these seeds? For what? I said, well, this grows this, that. And so, sure, how much? And to make a long story short, it was really fun being able to do that. And I remember feeling, well, they think these seeds are really good and the value was there. I didn't know the word value, but they wanted them and they bought them. And I ended up getting my glove. Then I got football and professional Canadian Football League football, and came kind of an adrenaline for me during these transactions. To this day, whether it's a very, very big deal or even a very small deal, that transaction, I still get the juice flowing. Or someone asking me, hey, can you close that? Can you do that? Still, it still gets me going. And I realized that I could do as many as I wanted. I could do it all day and get 25 bags sold, or stop at 5 or do nothing that day, watch Superman on TV, and next day I go and do it. So I love the fact that I had the freedom to do it as much as I wanted. Nobody told me when or what. And I felt that this is natural for me, not hesitating to ask for the money. It was worth the value. And those feelings stayed with me to this day. I started like that.
Yeah. And what age was that?
About 4.
About 4 years old. So you had this really interesting entrepreneurial vibe showing up in your life, salesmanship at a very, very young age. And now your current age is what?
I'm 69.
So 69 years old. And let's give our listeners the end result at this stage of life. What has like a big event that's occurred in your business life to kind of capstone that beginning at 4 years old?
Well, the biggest monetary one was when I was, I was the 3rd largest private shareholder in a company that we grew from. My partner had 32 clubs. My partner and I had 70 clubs. We merged, starting California. I had 30 some odd clubs all over Asia. We merged, we kept growing. We ended up with 475 locations, well over $1 billion of revenue, 4 million members, 365 million of EBITDA, 20 countries, and 25,000 staff I had. And we ended up selling for $1.78 billion about 15 years ago, 15 years ago.
So from the seeds at 4 years old to a $1.7 billion exit in a business, how does one get that far? Like, did you have any time in your young adult life where you were like, I'm shooting for $1 billion? Tell us some of that story.
I'm crazy, okay, but I'm not that crazy. I'm
Okay.
halfway there. I had steps that attracted me, just like the base. It wasn't the seeds that I was selling; it was the baseball glove. It was the football that I wanted. I remember my father showing me $100 bill, and I wanted $100 bill. It was beautiful Canadian color. And then there was a carnival where they were giving away a $1,000 bill, a red one in Canada, and I wanted that. And then, my father took me to a car show, and there was a Dino Ferrari, and oh my God, I want that car. So there was step by step by step.
Uh-huh.
I always had a, bigger goal. I've never had a limit on my mind. So even if I wanted the Ferrari, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to get the Ferrari over. No, Ferrari was part of my setup, part of
Mm.
my toys, part of my thing. And I'll figure out how to get the next one. And I always had a goal. And somewhere along the line, a yogi, because I'm very into yoga and the spiritual world at the same time, a yogi, we were in this silent retreat with many people.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, so let's hear what you guys do for a living. And he heard what I did. I had yoga centers and fitness centers. And it wasn't so much that he praised me, like, so you make people healthy and happy and da-na-na-na-na. But yes, I knew that. Yes, I knew that, of course. And loved that. And got many, many testimonials and letters of how people's lives have changed through what we have done. But it never hit me till he said how important that is, as we talked earlier, for a legacy, for karma, for humanity. So he said he implored everybody there that if they weren't already in an industry or a business that was at least neutral, but certainly helping people because of the amount of time and energy we put into our business, he implored them to make us a shift. And that I was doing it with the right energy and the right passion, but it kind of needed another little tweak.
Mm.
And he gave me that tweak. And it made me feel really good, even more than what we were doing.
Okay. And about what stage of life was that?
Late 20s. Late
Okay.
20s.
So it's still pretty early on.
Yeah, I had
And
met other situations like that, and I learned about yoga and meditation when I was 13.
mm-hmm.
And I realized how powerful it was. And, it's kind of like you watch business go through its trends. Before, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning was, wow, that's a crazy, wonderful idea. So you can get up and get a head start. So that was,
Uh-huh.
then, okay, now it's 5 o'clock and you got to do your meditation, your breathing, your this and that and this and that. And it's so true that learning about the unseen world, the energy. Everything is energy. Money is energy. A car is energy. An apple is energy. This podcast is energy. And so if that's the case, why don't you learn how to gain energy, retool your focus to the energy that you want to receive? Because it's a two-way street. It's a tuning fork.
Mm.
Whatever you dial in and send out is the only vibe that can come back. You can't be going out at 300 mellow whatevers and expect to get 900 back or 100 back. It's an absolute science, the law of attraction. It's, you call unto you what you have given out. So when you go from being afraid of its woo-woo or whatever to understanding it's all science and prove it, and the rishis were saying all this stuff 5,000 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
before Buddha and Patanjali, when now the neuroscientists, Dr. Joe Dispenza, saying the same words.
Yeah.
And all these great not new, but scientists today, it's the same, the field of unlimited possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And Deepak Chopra, when he first came out, talking about East and West and how that's aligned. And so if you're an entrepreneur, anybody really, why not work on both sides? The unseen magical and the reality that you think is necessary to make your business work on a second by second, moment by moment, reality in the present moment. You need both. You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to do as well without either one, without either side. So
Mhm.
get on, learn about it.
Yeah, that's powerful. I've had many learnings personally in that realm of the spiritual world and the field of infinite possibility, what sometimes is referred to as the quantum field. And simplest form, I think, in common language is like the law of attraction, as you said a moment ago. And you attract to you that which you send out. I think it was James Allen in his book As a Man Thinketh, where he used the phrase, you attract that which you are, not what you.
So many of the great authors in business and personal development, they almost all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there's maybe a handful of rules, universal laws. It's nothing to do with emotion. It has nothing to do with right or wrong or religion or where you're from. It's a universal law that's always been, is, and always will be, which is wonderful. You don't want it to be subjected to if you were nice to that dog today, or really nice. You want it to be exact, and it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Only
think.
one thing on that, though, because time is relative. It doesn't always respond at the time you think it should,
Mm.
because of an infinite number of complexities, and you don't control it. You let it happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and including me at times, have tried to force
For sure,
progress.
of course.
We want it
That's
now.
entrepreneurial. Yeah.
We
We can
force.
do it. We're not going to give up. One
Mm,
of my biggest faults is not hearing the universe say, go left, go right,
yeah.
stop, go down, go up. Because I'm a driver. And I said, I'm not giving up. And it wasn't for me. It wasn't in the card. So knowing when to let go, unattachment, move to the next universal trip is not easy for me because I'm a driver. I have a big ego. I hate losing, but the other side helps me. The other side helps me when I'm in that. I'm learning better now. I'm much better than I used to be in that category.
I'd be really curious if you could share a story or two about how that's
Yeah,
played
I
out.
can. I'll give you a perfect example. So, I used to be a child actor. I was in theater and TV and
Hmm.
film, and I moved to Los Angeles. I worked for Club Med. Have you ever heard of Club Med? Okay, so I worked at Club Med for a few years. Came back to Los Angeles to be an actor. It's not easy. I finally got a great part, and with some big known actors, my first real part. And we were already rehearsing, and it was going to be shot in Mardi Gras in New Orleans,
Hmm.
the main. And I got a call from my agent, and he said, "I have some bad news. Mardi Gras is canceled. The unions are on strike." So I'm like Schwarzenegger. Well, he says he never has a plan B. Well, I didn't have a plan B.
Hmm.
I was all in, and that movie was going to make it for me. I had already spent all the money I was supposed to get, and I did not know I didn't have a plan B. And it
Mm.
was raining every day that year in Los Angeles, and his office was on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, and I so depressed in the driving rain. I walked all the way to Pacific Coast Highway, all the way to Venice Beach, about 20 miles in the pouring rain in end of January, and got to my little tiny studio apartment. And I took off my boots, and I just lied down in a mess. And I looked up at the sky and I said, "Okay, God, I get it. You closed Mardi Gras to show me something, right? What is it? I don't have a plan B. You know I don't have a plan B. You got to show me something else." And I fell asleep. I woke up in the morning like Charlie Brown after losing another baseball game.
Huh?
And I made my way to Gold's Gym, which was about a quarter of a mile from my apartment in Venice. The time in the world, men and women didn't work out. If you were at a spa, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday would be women. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday would be men, no co-ed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Gold's Gym, however, Jurassic Park, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno,
Yeah.
and a few biker girls that were tougher than any of the guys. That was the scene, right? It was a
Okay.
tough scene. I'm standing at the front desk, and this girl walks in and says to me, and she was beautiful, beautiful. She says, "Will you train me?" I said, "Me?" Because I didn't work there. She said,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah." I said, "Where?" She says, "Here." I said, "Here?" And I looked around. I said, "Do you think this is your crowd? You're not intimidating?" She laughed. She said, "I think it's kind of culty, kind of cool."
Hmm.
And I said, "Are you crazy, or you think would your friends come also?" Right? My entrepreneur start, "Well, just not you. Would your friends come?" And she said, yeah, I think so. I'm getting ready for a Playboy shoot, and I think I need to tighten up, and I think this will do it. I said, wonderful, let's get started. So, boom, breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
that little tingle in my ear, and I said, that's it. From the moment she said that, to me going over to the current owner of Gold's Gym, buying the name for $2,500 for Canada, and that all took place within an hour.
No kidding.
You
So
have to be working out.
you're in Venice
Yeah,
Beach. Let me just make sure I got this. You're in Venice Beach right now, and you're kind of working
horribly
through.
depressed.
Yeah, you're feeling pretty bad about yourself. You show up at this Gold's Gym, and you're going to work out. I imagine you were pretty fit back then. Yeah, so you're looking the part, and this beautiful lady shows up and says, "Hey, will you train me?" And
Yeah.
the spark of the idea is generated to
There's
take
a picture
ownership rights of Gold's Gym in Canada.
for $2,500. That year, I sold $500,000 of T-shirts, and I opened up my first gym in Toronto.
Wow,
That's how that started.
that's like serendipitous, right? Like, how could you have ever have fathomed?
At that time, the world was, as I mentioned, separated women and men. But I opened up my first Gold's Gym. I called it Gold's Fitness for women and men,
Hmm.
and I ended up with over 60% female market. All my ads were based upon good-looking, fit women, no muscles,
Hmm.
and no muscle men, but couples and females, and I had a great PR girl who helped. We just did so many women's shows, and the women came. And then we opened up a chain of them throughout Canada and a couple in Santa Barbara with one of the owners of Gold's Gym. And that's actually how I started. I had worked in a spa when I was 16
Hmm.
and loved it. My training was, do you have running shoes? And that was my training. Honestly, I had no idea no one trained me. But after about the second day, the manager came, Eric, can you show me what you do when a guest comes in? I said, why? He said, well, they all join after you take them on a tour. I said, show me. So I took him on a tour, asked him all the questions. He says, why don't you sell? I said, will I make more money? He says, oh, yeah. So it was a 12 chain it was called Vic Tandy's. That was the first weekend of the month. And by the end of the month, it probably was 60 sales counselors. By the end of the month, I was number one. And put it in perspective, a new Corvette, 427, 435, was $5,000.
Okay.
And I was making $4,000 a month at 16.
Wow.
And I loved it. And I loved meeting the people, the energy, working out, I had 4 days off, 3 days on,
Hmm.
able to work out. Just the vibe.
Yeah.
It got me. That got me.
Yeah.
That got me.
Did you have any formal business management training? Did you work for somebody who taught you how to manage a business or grow a business?
Great question. I actually have a PhD, but it came from Club Med.
Okay.
So Club Med was, for those that don't know it, in the time that I was working for, it was the wildest place on the planet Earth.
Hmm.
Okay. It made Caligula Caesar stories look like Betty Crocker. It was wild. But that's not my point. My point was the resorts were 3-star. The rooms were 3-star at best.
Hmm.
The food was 3-star. The sports were 3-star. And the shows at night, which I was part of, at best were 3 stars.
Hmm.
At the parking lot, when the members had to go home, they're not going home. They'd lie down in front of the bus. They'd do human chains. They're not going home.
What?
They were hysterical, crying. They're not leaving. Doctor said, look, I'm leaving my practice. I'll be a scuba diving doctor. I'm not going back. And it wasn't a few people. It was the majority. We touched their lives in 7 days more than they had been touched in their whole life.
Wow.
We gave them a feeling that they had never experienced before. It wasn't the 3-star, that, blah, blah. It was how John did that or Mary did that. And the experience that they got. And it started with the GOs, the people that worked there, which I was one of them.
Hmm.
I went to, I saw a magazine, Newsweek, talked about what a GO was. It said, I didn't even know about Club Med. It said, the true gypsies of the world, the GOs of Club Med. Beautiful, Christy Brinkley, blonde, blah, blah. And when I finished that magazine, I was making $4,000 a month. I stayed up all night, sent my resume to France, because it's a French company. Make a long story short, they asked me to go to New York for an interview. I go to New York for an interview. There's 1,000 people there, literally. The prettiest girls, the most handsome men. It was overwhelming.
Hmm.
And They showed this movie, and I just was praying, oh, this is me. I need to get. I remember getting the envelope, and my hands were shaking to see if I got in, and it said, "Félicitations, congratulations. We'll see you in Club Med Martinique, April 15." Years later, I'd worked for 2 years at that time, and I met the interviewer. He came to one of the clubs that I was at, and I had done well already. I won the Oscar for the best entertainer of the 80 clubs every season, and he was there to give me something. And he said, "Eric, you know that time that I met you and I hired you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How many people you think I hired that weekend?" I said, 1,000. I said, "No, no." I said, "Well, how many?" He said, "You." I said, "Oh, give me a break. Me? Big why? I speak French from Montreal." He said, "No. You had that sparkle in your eye, that wild sparkle that I knew. You knew what I know, you know, and who you are, and you fit in with our vibe. And you were the only one that did that weekend."
Right.
And it wasn't just a flattering, it really made a mark on me. And later on, when I opened up my clubs, I never forgot.
Yeah.
The people that I hired, they didn't have to have education, they didn't have to come from a wealthy family, they didn't have to be tall, short, whatever. They had to have that spirit, that energy. And I created a company called California Fitness in Asia. We didn't break every record by a bit. We quadrupled it, 10 times it. We did numbers that were impossible. You walked in to that club, and that was before Walkmans, and Van Halen times 10, and it was a party you couldn't get anywhere else. And it was a brand, and we were the brand, and the energy, it was all about energy. We were the first, but yeah, we had the best equipment, we had great location, blah, blah, blah. We did all that too. But it wasn't that. It was the feeling that the members got by being part of a club they adored and were proud to tell and show our California Fitness Center membership. That meant they were super cool and part of an elite group of party maniacs that are getting in shape and doing good for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Yeah. So again, let me just kind of recap. I'm getting this story for the first time. You started your chain in Canada, but prior to that, there was this experience with Club Med that had really set the tone for the need for some sort of vibe, some sort of special experience that people needed to have. Is that right? And you brought that into your club, or sorry, your chain of fitness centers in Canada.
In Canada first, and then when I got to Asia, even more so, because there was no fitness in all of Asia. When I opened up my first club, here's for entrepreneurs to hear. 1996, Hong Kong. I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese. I don't know anybody. And if we have time, I'll talk about how I manifested the club. The building that I saw was exactly what I had manifested in my mind, in my consciousness, to the T. And the rent monthly. Everyone's telling me the Chinese won't work out. Women will never sweat in front of a man. Chinese don't want muscles. Every story. The rent was $250,000 US a month
for this building to hold one fitness club.
1996.
Wow.
500, 600, 700,000 today. Well, everyone tell you it's not going to work here. The smart people, the lawyers, the PR, the people that should know everything. Oh, go home. It's not going to work. And I had to give 6 months deposit and first and last month, $1.5 million US before I got my first member. Everyone telling me, go home. I pre-sold $3.6 million in 8 weeks. 40 days after I opened, I paid everything off. And that first year, we did $7 million EBITDA in that club. Then I opened up in Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, China, Australia, and blew every. They didn't have any fitness centers except in the hotels. They didn't even know what it was. I signed up for like 3,500 members. 90% of them had no idea what they bought. It was just the enthusiasm. Hey, let's get started. And we would do $100,000 US by lunch.
Well, give me some sense of how that pre-selling took place and how you had the confidence to step into that business venture in another country with the language you didn't speak.
I am average intelligence, but what I do have, I have instinct and I see holes. Holes meaning opportunity. And when I went to Asia, there wasn't fitness there. And I knew if it wasn't me, someone's going to do it. But I had the experience. I had just sold a big chain to 24-hour, which was our big sale. But I didn't want to be president. I didn't want to work as a top executive. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll come back. I'll keep my shares, but I'm going to Asia. And the only thing you got to be careful of, if you see a hole, you see an opportunity at $250,000 a month, you can't be too early. Okay, you got to time it. Like a year earlier, I don't know. A year later, maybe someone else would have started, but I was the first in every country. We had a club in Taipei that was a big one. They were all about 45, 50,000 square feet. This one ended up being 75. Cost about $5 million, and we did 13 million EBITDA in our first year. One club.
That's remarkable. And so again, we got to
In my third year there, we did $100 million in revenue, US dollar, in just that 12 months, with $37 million profit in that 12-month period.
I think to the average entrepreneur, that's almost unfathomable to hear those numbers.
Yeah.
So give us some context.
It would have been to me if you would have told me that, also like, I know what the best clubs do in America, in Canada, and Europe, and you're going to tell me you're going to do 25 times that? People that don't know anything about it? And we did. And I had Cindy Crawford was my spokesmodel, my spokesperson. She'd only done Revlon, and it was Join California Fitness, my club. She had the perfect body, non-intimidating, world-class, world #1 model. Everyone aspired to have her. To look like her.
Yeah.
She came with me all through Asia, every cover, every magazine, every TV, everything you can imagine. Then we had Pamela Anderson when Baywatch was super huge. She did the same thing. And I'm very aware of marketing, trends, feelings, vibes, culture, branding, very big on branding, and the resoluteness to keep the brand to what your customers expect. And I'm very strict on that. I'll give you a story. So if I'm rambling, just say,
stories
stop.
are so connectable. So please share.
Okay. So I'll tell you the power of branding and the power of the human touch. Well, I had opened up in Singapore, and it was a gorgeous club. It was one that I built from the ground up. Beautiful staircase, about 40,000 square feet. Killing it, doing $5 million US, 7 a year. And all of a sudden, it started to go down. And here was my brand. My brand was, I created the CDs with a disc jockey, and you had to play those 5, which are marked today, up to 5 from last month, nothing 2 months ago. And that's all you played. That's it. I marked every single stereo with a red mark, nail polish. You couldn't play the volume lower than that. Above it, no problem. On the TVs, MTV, fashion TV, or sports. So and Singapore we have this big ground floor entrance with doors that should stay open. I get to nobody knows that I'm coming. I show up unexpected, and the doors are shut. So instead of keeping it open, now they had it so someone had to open it. The music you couldn't hear. When it's open, you should be hearing the music all the way on the street. I get to the receptionist. There's no receptionist there. And guess what I can't hear?
TVs or
no music. It's on whisper level. I go around the reception. I look at the TVs. And the one I saw was 2 80-year-old women cutting papaya.
Oh, boy.
So by that time, the word is out. Eric's in the club. I pretend, the wrestler, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
I pretended that I was one of those guys. I jumped over the reception, and like a maniac, I started clawing at the equipment and throwing it overhead onto Orchard Road, the main street in all of Singapore, like a maniac, scared the hell out of everybody except for me. So I called an all-staff meeting, fired the district manager, fired the manager, fired the head receptionist, fired the operation manager, in front of everybody. I said, you broke the brand. Now, that's okay, and that's a brand story. I stayed for the next 30 days. Don't get this is 1999, 2000. Me being there instead of the manager being there, we did $300,000 more that month than the previous month. And I put in new team, and they continued that vibe until maybe, I don't know, a year or so later to the kind of happened again.
Yeah.
But once you create a brand that you're satisfied with, you protect it. And that's your hiring, that's your level of volume in every aspect. It's everything. It's ground floor entrance, it's windows, it's people working out in the windows, it's the colors, it's everything. It's your hiring. Who you're hiring, what do they look like? What's their attitude?
Mm-hmm.
Are they extroverts, introverts? Is she going to be on the phone? It's not like that. So, and you know what I've learned, and I've opened up in 21 countries, people are people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what your eye looks like or the color of your hair, skin, whatever. We all want to feel great. We all want to feel successful, a happy family. We all want the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can clue in who your customer is and your business is based upon what they want, not what you think they want, but what they actually want, you're going to be successful.
Brilliant. I think so many of the listeners here today are going to recognize that maybe they've been dishonoring their own brand, that they've allowed some of their team members to dishonor that, and they're going to have to let them go. So help them have the courage. How do people effectively?
It's my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. She had a spa business doing very well. She had to fire somebody. She says, how do I do it? I said, simple. You could go over to, what's her name? Her name is Elva. Hey, Elva, I got some great news. And Elva says, what's that? I says, all the time you've been complaining you didn't have enough time to go out with your friends and family? Well, now you do. You can have as much time as you want. You're fired. I do that. I usually do that. But I mean, I don't want, it's different now with all the rules and regulations. You'd have to break a lot more today. But I remember I had this all staff meeting and had a new guy. We're talking about guest passes
Mm-hmm.
and why they work. And he stood up. He says, I don't believe in guest passes. There's about 500 of my staff. And I said, oh, okay, can you stand up? He said, yeah. I said, what's your name? I said, how long have you're from the home office, aren't you? I said, so how long have you been in sales? He said, a few days. I said, so you think after a few days, you know more than the team? And I, at that time, been doing it for 25 years. You know more than them?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I don't believe that we should do that. I said, you know what? That's wonderful. And you can leave now because I don't have time to watch you, follow you. If you can't follow and understand the brand and open up doors to everybody to try it, I don't have time. We're exploding. We're opening 4 countries this year. We're going to hire 3,000 staff. Those staff are going to buy 100 homes for their families and their grandparents. And I don't have time to teach you why negativity doesn't exist in California fitness. Mm-hmm. So leave. Those are some of the things you look back and maybe you were too tough or whatever. But when you got your entire life on the line and everybody that was working with you needs that and they bought into you, and I said, you do this. I hire from within. Okay. I promote from within. Sorry. And this is what she did. And this is what he did. And this is the house that they bought. And this is the car that this is the bank account. I'll do that if you do your part. And nothing could be more powerful to your team than proven people that have been in the same position that they are. They knew nothing. They showed up. I need a job. And now they're regional managers. Now they're making $1 million a year. And here's what they've done. And they just followed the game. They were the right type of people. They had the right attitude. And here you go. And when you're looking for a teacher, you want to find a teacher that can say that. Like, here's my team. This is how great they are now. This is what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And look at them. They're so great. They're better than I am now. They're better than this and they've done that. And then the other question you ask them, what have you done? You want to teach me, what have you done? Schwarzenegger has biceps. I'll listen to him for biceps. Many times we have advice. This is for entrepreneurs. You're asking the wrong people advice. Don't ask people that have never made it, that are great intellectually. They have a degree, but they've never had to pay the rent. Never had to face not being able to pay payroll or the rent or a bill coming out of nowhere that devastates you or a government law changing everything on you. You need a teacher that has gone through it, exactly what you want. Let them tell you what they've done, who they've taught, who their teacher is, who their teacher's teacher is. That's who you want. To what you were saying before, entrepreneurs will ask advice. Don't ask advice unless you're asking someone who's been through it in your industry. And when I started, I learned my at that spa, I cleaned whirlpools and swimming pools, and I learned everything: cleaning, reception, personal training, every aspect of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get into a new business, go into let's say it's fitness, go to your local chain, go through their training, spend 6 months, a year, feel it. Feel it. If it's what you love, that's how you learn it, by doing it. Don't just jump into it. Thousands of people say, "Oh, I'm going to open up a gym." That's like saying, "Let's do a brain surgery together." It ain't going to work.
Yeah, because they don't know a thing about it, right? They might have a passion for
They
being
nothing.
fit, but they don't necessarily know how to run a fitness business.
Not a hobby. That's right.
Yeah. And so you're saying get in, dive in, be a part of the organization before you start something. And then,
Absolutely. See it first of all if you like it, because you're spending most of your life in it. If it's something that you're good at, you feel this is right. That's my recommendation. You got to do that. And don't open up a business until you've explored the similar business. You may change it, but it's a similar business for at least possible a year,
mm-hmm.
if possible a year.
Mm-hmm. This has been fantastic, Eric. I really appreciate your time. I have just maybe 2 questions to wrap things up today. And this podcast is the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. I like to get my guests' perspective on the word wealth. How do you define wealth, and how has that changed over your lifetime?
Well, that's another great question. Wealth does change over your lifetime. I mean, my first baseball glove, I was the wealthiest person in the world. That $1,000 bill, man, I was, Elon Musk.
Uh-huh.
As you mature, you realize that, for me, I'm just talking for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be a balance. You have to have balance of paying it forward, karma, doing good for what you know is important for humanity, for animals, for children, whatever it is. It's not about a religion or anything. It's who you are and how you want to give back. To be able to be wealthy would mean to be able to be free to give to anywhere you want, at any time, any amount, do anything that you want, a balanced spiritual life, physical life, emotional life, and a charitable life that makes you, pay it forward, give back. You want to feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's wealth. My wife and I, we adopted, I think 48 children in this slum in Thailand with
Mm-hmm.
this. It was a Father Joe's Mercy Center was the name of it. Slaughterhouse in the worst slum. Angel of a priest, Irish priest, had this orphanage. And I mean, the stories that I heard were beyond, I couldn't say on a podcast, but he stuck with it, from babies with umbilical cords left on his door. And now he brought them up, and now they got their PhD in Norway on scholarship, and now they're teaching at the orphanage. So you become part of a feeling. It's not just the money, it's the reward. Every month you got a little letter, what they did, their grades and this, and they knew that. But that's what wealth is for me.
Yeah.
And do what I want. I want to go to the Maldives for 6 months. See ya.
Mm-hmm.
Don't call me.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to find me. Or I want to buy that. I want to do that. Freedom to do what you think you want to do. And that's what wealth is. And it changes. It changes.
Oh, thank you for your perspective on that. I'm curious if there's any particular laws or principles you view are the most important in life and business.
Well, there's so many that can be used in business.
Mm-hmm.
Law of attraction, the law of visualization, the law of manifestation. The saying, fake it till you make it. I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
The real words of that is become the end result now. You want to be CEO, act as if you're the CEO now. Wear the CEO clothes. Wear the CEO shoes. Get to the place at CEO time. Believe that you are that now. What happens? Why does that work? Okay. First thing that happens is your self-image starts to take on that persona.
Yeah.
I am the CEO. My shoulders are like the CEO. I eat like the CEO. I wake up like the CEO. My friends are the CEO, like that a CEO. My golf club is where the CEO. I am a CEO. Self-image starts saying, you are a CEO. Those closest to you, your wife, son, daughter, whatever, you are a CEO. They start taking, and it keeps going like a pebble in the water. The ripples go all the way to the source. Then the universe will give you the opportunities based upon the vibe that you created as a CEO. Now the universe can give you CEO opportunity. If you don't, you say, well, I'm this low, but one day you're just sending out the weak vibe. You need to have the vibe as if, acting as if it's already happened. You're already that's a fabulous law to remember.
I love that. Thank you. I share similar things a lot. And so that idea of acting as if is so powerful. Be the person that you aspire to be. Thank you. Now, last question then, as you look ahead into your life, I'm sure you've thought this through a lot, given you've had such a beautiful and interesting life and a wonderful business life. Wealth, defined it as you just defined it, being a lot more than just money. What legacy do you hope to leave, both in your fitness, business life, in your family life, and just to the world in general? What do you wish most to leave behind in this world?
Well, people that know me know that I've lived a colorful life. And that's been I remember I read the Calvin and Hobbes book about that little boy with his tiger. And that's who I was all my life, Calvin and the little boy with his tiger. With my imagination, my imagination was my savior because I quit school when I was 14. I didn't have that, but my imagination was pretty great. But one thing I'm really proud of is, as I mentioned earlier, I had been into yoga since I was 13. I've been to India many times, got married in the Himalayan mountains, initiated to the longest line of yogis in the Himalayan masters. And when I had all these clubs, yoga was dead. Yoga was dead. 23 years ago, yoga was dead. It was dead in America. Nothing. One class. We had many clubs. We had one class every week. 2 people would come, kind of weirdish people. And yoga was dead. It was dead in India. It was dead everywhere. And I remember waking up one day and saying, what are we going to do? I went to India and I found a dozen yogis, 3rd generation, real yogis, vegetarian. They were yogis. They weren't yoga teachers.
Yeah.
Brought them all the way to Hong Kong, cleaned them up, got them visas and everything. Yoga's dead, remember? And I opened up a 30,000 square foot facility in the downtown Hong Kong, also about $200,000 a month. Within 60 days, I was putting through 25,000 people a month, all doing yoga. My ads, we're not yoga teachers, we're yogis. And to tell you the truth, at that time there was prejudice against Indians in Hong Kong. Indians were not considered anything. They were not welcome. And we blew the doors out. Then I opened up all over the world. And then yoga caught on like a forest fire. It couldn't be better. I mean, you go in LA, if there's not 1,000 yoga studios with every style and millions and millions and millions of people better off because of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I invented anything. I didn't do any of that, but I helped reignite it. And I know that makes the world a better place. People that practice yoga are nicer than they were before. They're more conscious than they were before. They're healthier. And they spread that beautiful higher consciousness, which I think in my own little way, I helped. That's it.
Well, again, thank you, Eric, so much for joining me on my podcast. I wish you a wonderful life, and I'm sure we'll see each other around in the near future.
Yes, we will. And thank you for having me. I had fun.
You're welcome. All right. Have a great night, Eric.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. We hope the insights from today's episode help you streamline your finances and grow your wealth stress-free. For show notes from today's episode and more tips on creating a comprehensive wealth-building plan, visit moneymasterycoaching.com. Remember, financial freedom is attainable. Until next time, keep accelerating towards your goals. See you on the next episode.